Hello there. Here is the final proof that UK borders are an entire joke. Would you credit it? The UK is now seen as a soft route into the European Union for irregular migrants. That's right, they enter the UK on visitors' visas, then they get onto a lorry to get across the Channel and into the European Union. All because it is far safer than getting on a boat to cross the Mediterranean. And the Telegraph reports that a group of 22 Algerians, Moroccans and Tunisians followed this route trying to get into France. The UK is now a people smugglers' two-way doormat, and a very profitable doormat for them it is. But these people were caught at the Dover end of the journey, so were refused entry into the European Union. It appears that potential irregular migrants from French-speaking countries like former French colonies see this as a big opportunity when the UK hands them visitors' visas. And as they are here legally, it seems there's nothing we can do about it. Because when they're stopped in Dover by French border guards, these irregular immigrants are technically committing an offence against France on French soil. So does that mean they can stay here and keep trying to cross the Channel until their visa runs out, or they are successful in their endeavours? Or maybe they can claim asylum here, get put up in hotels, and then keep trying while being fed and watered. Now I wonder if some budding entrepreneur will be setting up a rubber dinghy stall on the beaches of Dover. I mean, there must be loads of boats that can be recycled across the Channel. Then the RNLI and Border Force can return the compliment by escorting the boats into French waters, and the French Navy can obligingly take over and get them safely into a French port. But somehow I think our authorities would be extremely effective at stopping such an operation on our own beaches, and I doubt the French would be as accommodating as our Border Force and RNLI have been over the years. Now the Telegraph says that one unnamed source told them that those who came on visitors' visas but tried to smuggle themselves into France might be considered to be here illegally because they arrived under false pretences. But what do we do? Prosecute? The lefties would be up in arms. And deportation? When does that ever get allowed? But further, the report also said that this group of 22 that were caught last week were the first. What the source really means, of course, is that these were the first that were caught. But what do they do with the driver of the lorry? Refuse it entry into France also? And who would prosecute the driver? In what court? So we now have people traffickers taking the proverbial and treating the fully compromised borders of the UK and the EU with complete disdain. But here's the thing. Why is anyone who wants to come to the UK coming by boat? Why don't they just apply for visitors' visas and buy a ticket? Then claim once they are here. Surely that would be the cheapest thing to do. And why not just apply for a visitor's visa into France? Is it because getting a visitor's visa would throw up too many problems for the applicant? Is it because there is a high likelihood they would be refused? They need to prove such things as sufficient genuine evidence of a purpose for the visit, that they have the means to support themselves throughout, that they have strong ties to their own country and will return on completion of the visit. And a previous refusal of a visa might also be a problem. And of course a criminal history would also be a bar to getting a visitor's visa. And to cap it all, biometric data is taken, including pictures, where copies are kept for 15 years as I understand it. So the visiting visa route is only a good idea for those wishing to get into a stepping stone country. Now, if this so-called easy route into the EU via the UK becomes a risk to the EU, then we might start to see some real action from the French and the wider EU on their side. They might want to restart the sharing of Schengen visitor biometric data with the UK, something that ended with Brexit. And you do have to wonder how many in those Calais camps are legal visitors into Schengen, but we won't have any information on that. And Brussels is unlikely to allow it unless it would also benefit them. I also wonder how many use a visitor's visa to get into the UK and then into the Republic of Ireland. Now, one Home Office spokesman said, "Abuse of our immigration system will not be tolerated, and we have robust measures in place to ensure compliance. We are committed to an immigration policy which welcomes those in genuine need but deters illegal immigration, prevents the abuse of public funds and removes foreign criminals from the UK." Patently all untrue. The UK is a magnet for those that want to come here to stay, and is now a magnet for those that want to come here as a stepping stone to get into the EU. In fact, this last bit might have been happening undiscovered for quite a while. Who knows for sure? What a farcical position for both the UK and the EU to be in. But it will please the likes of those in the UN and the WEF. They rather like the total freedom of movement and the destruction of nation-states and their heritage. And we have very many people in the upper echelons of the relevant establishments well and truly in Bilderberg, WEF and UN pockets. And someone has to pay. The taxpayer. And here's a horrific story from The Independent. 1 in 3 people who rent privately in the UK had to borrow to pay last month's rent. Over 2 million people have turned to credit cards, overdrafts, family members, or even payday loans to meet landlords' demands, it says. Well, the term landlord's demands is a bit strong. It's all about paying a contractual rental amount. But the picture it paints is of a looming and major housing disaster. At some point, that growing borrowing will hit the buffers. Then the defaults and repossessions starts, with calls for government to step in with taxpayers' money to keep them in their homes, and landlords going bust in the process. And tenants who end up out on their ear will have to turn to the local council for help. And I bet they don't get a 4-star hotel to live in until a nice new house can be found for them. Especially as The Independent also says that the majority of local councils have not built a single new house in 5 years, even though 1.2 million people are on waiting lists. Although I would point out that the UK does not really have a housing shortage. It has a fast-growing population problem. Without that, I would reckon we'd be all right for housing. And we all know the reason for this explosion in population numbers. And if predictions are to be believed, this year will be a record in legal inward migration and net migration for the UK. So the only conclusion I can come to is that this is the establishment plan.